Hello everyone, my name is Hai. I'm 28 years old. If you've been following my journey from the beginning, you probably already know that I lost four fingers in a serious accident. After that accident, I decided to leave my hometown and move to Hanoi in search of a job, hoping to start my life over from scratch. The day I left, I had no family by my side and no friends waiting for me in the city. All I carried was a small backpack, a few sets of clothes, and the hope that if I worked hard enough, things would eventually get better. But today, it's already my fifth day here, and I still haven't found a job. I've visited countless places and asked everywhere I could, but almost everyone shook their head the moment they saw my hand. For many employers, someone with a disability like me simply isn't the person they're looking for. The little money I brought from home is almost gone, and so is the hope and excitement I felt when I first arrived. Everything about Hanoi has turned out to be very different from what I imagined. Before coming here, I believed that as long as I was willing to work hard, there would be an opportunity waiting for me. But a big city doesn't just offer opportunities, it also comes with intense competition and constant pressure. Even people with two healthy hands struggle to make a living every day. For someone like me, with only one fully functional hand, the challenge feels even greater. After many sleepless nights, I finally made a decision. I'm going back home. Even though this journey didn't give me the job I was hoping for, it gave me something else. Valuable experiences and life lessons that I'll never forget. Sometimes taking a step back doesn't mean you've given up. Sometimes it simply means you're choosing a path that's better suited for who you are. And more importantly, there are still people and things back home that truly matter, waiting for me to return. Welcome to my little home. This is probably the first time I've truly invited all of you into the place where my children and I spend our everyday lives. Some of you might be surprised to see two little kids running around in the background. Yes, they're my children. Until now, I haven't shared much about my family, not because I wanted to keep it a secret, but because I always felt there would be a right time to tell my story. And I think today is that day. I realized that if you only see the person I am today, it would be difficult to understand why I've made certain choices in life. So from now on, I'd like to tell my story little by little, the happy moments, the painful ones, and the experiences that shaped the person I am today. One question I imagine many of you have is, you look so young, how do you already have two children? The truth is, I got married at a young age. After finishing my military service, I worked for a few years. Like many young men, I dreamed of having a stable job, earning an honest living, and one day building a warm home for my future family. Then I met my wife. Our love story wasn't dramatic or extraordinary. There were no expensive gifts or luxury dates. It was simply two young people who believed that if they worked hard together, life would eventually become better. In 2020, we got married. It was one of the happiest days of my life. A year later, in 2021, our daughter was born. I'll never forget the first time I held her in my arms. At that moment, I made a promise to myself that I would work as hard as I could so she would never have to grow up without the things she needed. Then in 2023, our son joined the family. Almost overnight, our quiet little home became filled with laughter, tiny footsteps, toys on the floor, and little voices calling Dad. Those were some of the happiest years of my life. Time moves faster than we realize. It feels like only yesterday they were tiny babies sleeping in my arms. Now my daughter is already 5 years old and my little boy has turned 3. They run around the house, laugh together, play together, and rush to hug me whenever I come home. For many people, these might seem like ordinary moments, but for me, they're the most precious moments in the world. After everything life has put me through, I've learned that nothing is more important than family. My children are the reason I refuse to give up. Even on the hardest days when I feel exhausted or hopeless, I remind myself that two little people are waiting for their dad to come home. This time I left home to find work. But in the end, I couldn't find a job. So when I came back home, my backpack wasn't filled with expensive gifts. There were no new toys, no nice clothes, nothing special, just a few bags of chips, a couple of small cakes, and some cartons of milk. But what surprised me the most was how happy my children were. The moment they saw me walk through the door, they ran straight into my arms. Those simple snacks suddenly became the greatest gifts in the world. And that's when I realized something. Children don't always care about expensive things. Their happiness isn't measured by the price of a gift. Sometimes, the greatest gift is simply seeing their father come home safely. Later, the three of us sat together and talked. I asked them, "Were you both good while Dad was away?" They smiled and answered, "Yes." Then my daughter looked at me and quietly said, "I was good. I just missed you, Dad." Those few words broke my heart. She told me that every other time I went to work, I always came home in the evening. But this time, I was gone for so many days. She said every night she waited for me. She kept asking her grandmother, "When is Dad coming home?" She tried so hard to stay awake, but eventually her eyes would close. Then she'd wake up the next morning, and I still wasn't there. Listening to her tell me that story, I couldn't say a word. I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt, not because I didn't try, but because my children had been waiting for someone who couldn't come home. Children don't understand the worries adults carry. They don't know that their father traveled far away looking for work. They don't know how many times he was turned away. They don't know that some nights he barely had enough money left in his pocket. They don't understand the weight of responsibility. They only know one thing: their dad was gone and they missed him. Sometimes I think the most valuable thing a child needs isn't an expensive toy or a costly gift. It's seeing their father walk through the front door every evening. It's being able to run into his arms, to eat dinner together, to hear him ask, "Were you good today?" Maybe. Those ordinary moments are the greatest gifts a child could ever receive. And no matter how difficult life becomes, those are the moments I'm determined to protect. The greatest thing about coming home wasn't finally getting a chance to rest after days of disappointment. It was seeing my children healthy, happy, and growing up so beautifully. Even though I was only away for a few days, they somehow seemed older when I came back. Our little house was once again filled with laughter. The two of them ran around together, played with their toys, watched cartoons, and laughed over the smallest things. Watching those simple moments made all the stress and disappointment I had been carrying disappear. Of course, like most brothers and sisters, they argue sometimes. My little boy is still very young and full of energy. He loves teasing his big sister, taking her toys and sometimes trying to boss her around. But what touches me the most is how gentle my daughter is with him. There are moments when I think she's about to cry or get angry. Instead, she quietly lets him have the toy. She knows he's younger, so she chooses kindness over fighting. In her own little way, she's already learning how to love and protect her little brother. When I watch them hugging each other, playing together, or sharing something as simple as a small snack, I realize something important. I may not have much money, but I have a family that's rich in love. As long as my children grow up caring for one another, learning to share, and treating people with kindness, I feel like I've already been blessed with something priceless. This trip also taught me an important lesson. There were things I once believed were worth chasing, but now I know they are not as valuable as being here with my family. Watching my children grow up, hearing their laughter every day, sharing a simple meal together, those are the moments I never want to miss again. That's why I've made a promise to myself. I don't want to leave home for work again. Life here may be difficult, making a living may never be easy. Some days I'll probably work from sunrise until late at night, but if it means I can come home every evening, if it means I can watch my children grow up with my own eyes, then every hardship will be worth it. I want to be the one who walks them to school, the one who eats dinner with them, the one who hugs them before they fall asleep. Maybe I'll never become a wealthy father, but I hope I can become the kind of father who's always there when his children need him. Because after everything I've learned, money can always be earned again, but the time we lose with our children can never be brought back. After we finished our meal, I thought the rest of the afternoon would be quiet and peaceful. Then my daughter looked at me, smiled, and asked, "Dad, did you forget something?" For a second, I had no idea what she meant. Then she reminded me, "Before you left, you promised you'd buy us toys when you came home." The moment she said those words, I couldn't help but smile. At the same time, I felt a little guilty. That's the wonderful thing about children. They may forget many things, but they rarely forget a promise made by their parents. To adults, a promise like that may seem small, just a few simple words. But to a child, it's something they hold on to every single day while waiting for you to come home. I quietly reached into my pocket and counted my money. I only had about $10 left. It was almost everything I had after returning from Hanoi. For a moment, I hesitated. If I kept the money, it would help with tomorrow's expenses. But then I looked at my children. Their eyes were full of excitement. In that moment, I realized some things are worth far more than money. So the three of us walked to a small toy store together. The whole way there, they chatted excitedly, laughing about which toys they might choose. Sometimes children don't even need expensive gifts. Just having their father beside them is already enough to make the day feel special. As soon as we walked into the store, everything happened just as it always does. My daughter went straight to the pretend makeup sets. Without even thinking twice, she picked the one she liked the most. My little boy, on the other hand, couldn't take his eyes off the toy cars. After looking around for a while, he happily chose a blue police car with flashing lights. The smiles on their faces were priceless. Watching them hug their new toys, I knew every dollar I'd spent was worth it. The toys themselves weren't expensive, but what made my children happiest wasn't the toys, it was the fact that their dad had kept his promise. That moment reminded me of something I'll never forget. A promise that seems small to an adult can mean the whole world to a child. Children believe every word their parents say. They wait, they trust, and they hope those promises will come true. I may not earn a lot of money. I may never be able to give my children the most expensive toys or the perfect life. But as long as I can, I want to be the kind of father who keeps his promises. Because years from now, I don't think they'll remember exactly what toy they received that day. I hope they'll remember something much more important, that their dad held their hands, walked beside them, and came home exactly as he promised.
Rồi được rồi, mở ra xem rồi cất đi con ạ.
Watching my two children laugh and play with their new toys filled my heart with happiness. Sometimes, seeing their smiles is enough to make all my worries disappear. I know many of you have probably been wondering, why don't we ever see their mother in your videos? The truth is, my wife and I divorced about 6 months ago. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to face. No one gets married expecting their marriage to end. When we got married, we dreamed of growing old together and raising our children as a family. I truly believed that would be our future. We got married in 2020. Over the next 6 years, we built a small home together and welcomed two wonderful children into our lives. I thought our family would stay together forever, but everything began to change after my accident. Losing four fingers meant I could no longer work the way I used to. Providing for my family became much more difficult. During that time, my wife became the main person supporting our household. Later, I discovered that she had developed a relationship with another man. That was one of the most painful moments of my life. I was heartbroken. Even then, I tried many times to talk with her. I hoped we could save our marriage, not only for us, but for our children. More than anything, I wanted them to grow up with both their father and mother by their side. But as time went on, the distance between us only grew larger. We talked less. We spent less time together. Our home no longer felt like it once did. After trying everything I could, we both agreed that ending our marriage was the only path left. It was a heartbreaking decision. After the divorce, both of our children stayed with me. Some people ask if I'm afraid of raising two young children on my own. Honestly, of course I am. There are days when I worry about the future, days when I wonder if I'll be able to give them everything they deserve. But there was one thing I never questioned. I couldn't bear the thought of separating them. They've grown up side by side since the day my youngest son was born. They eat together, play together, sleep beside each other. They're more than brother and sister, they're best friends. If they had to live apart, I think it would break both of their hearts. So I chose to raise them together. I know the road ahead won't be easy. There will be difficult days, days when money is tight, days when I'll feel exhausted. But every time I see their smiles, I know it's all worth it. I may not be able to give them the perfect family they once had, but I promise to give them everything else I can, my love, my time, and every bit of strength I have, because no matter what happens in life, I want my children to grow up knowing one thing: their father has always loved them with all his heart.
Xấu quá Quýt ạ. Đổ hết đấy. Gặp không?
Many of you are probably wondering, if you went all the way to Hanoi to look for work, who took care of your children? I'd like to introduce someone very special. This is my mother, the children's grandmother. While I was away, she and my father looked after my two kids. Without them, I don't think I would have had the courage to leave home and search for another chance. Every time I watched my mother cooking for the children, helping them get dressed, comforting them when they cried, and taking care of them every day, I felt two emotions at the same time: deep gratitude and deep guilt. At an age when my parents should be enjoying a quieter life, they're still helping their grown son and raising two young grandchildren. I hope that one day I'll be able to repay everything they've done for me. But life changed so quickly. Everything happened within such a short period of time that I barely had time to catch my breath. In June 2025, I was involved in a serious workplace accident. That accident took away four of my fingers. It changed my life forever. From someone who could work normally, I suddenly became someone learning how to live with a permanent disability. Months later, while I was still trying to recover physically, another heartbreak arrived. At the beginning of 2026, I discovered that my marriage was falling apart. I tried to talk. I hoped we could fix things. I hoped we could save our family. But despite my efforts, we couldn't find our way back. In April 2026, we divorced. In less than a year, I lost my health, I lost my job, and I lost the family I thought would stay together forever. There were many nights when I couldn't sleep. I kept blaming myself. If I hadn't had that accident, would my life be different today? If I had still been able to work, could I have protected my family? Could my children still be growing up with both parents under the same roof? Those questions stayed in my mind for a very long time, but eventually I realized life doesn't give us the chance to rewrite the past. All we can do is accept reality and decide how to move forward. After the divorce, I stayed home with my children. Every day I watched them grow, I felt more pressure. I had no stable income, no clear future, only the responsibility of raising two little lives. Every night I lay awake asking myself the same questions. How can I earn enough to support them? How can I be a good father when I feel so lost myself? Eventually, I made the decision to travel to Hanoi. I believed that a bigger city would offer a fresh start, more opportunities, a chance to rebuild my life. I carried all my hopes with me on that journey, but life had another lesson waiting for me. After 5 days of searching everywhere, I still couldn't find a job. No miracle happened. I came home with a lighter backpack, but a much heavier heart. Looking back now, I think life was trying to teach me something. A new beginning doesn't always happen in a new city. Sometimes it begins right where you are, beside the people who never stopped believing in you, beside your parents, beside your children. Today, I no longer dream about having a perfect life. I simply hope for good health, an honest job, and the chance to watch my children grow up. For me, that would already be more than enough. After everything that's happened, I've realized that the greatest blessing in my life isn't money. It's the fact that my parents are still by my side. There were moments when I felt like I had lost almost everything: my health, my job, the marriage I once treasured. But every time I thought I couldn't get back on my feet, my parents were there to catch me. I'm the youngest son in my family. I have one older brother. He got married years ago and has built a life of his own with his family. As for me, even after I got married, I continued living with my parents. Some of you watching from other countries might find that unusual. I'm not sure if it's the same where you live, but in many Vietnamese families, especially in rural areas, it's common for the youngest child to stay with the parents. Part of the reason is to help care for them as they grow older. In many families, the youngest child is also the one who continues looking after the family home and its responsibilities. Meanwhile, the older sibling often builds a new home somewhere else with their own family. Of course, every family is different. This is simply the tradition in mine. Living with my parents has its advantages. I don't have to worry about paying rent. There's always a warm meal waiting at home. And most importantly, my children have grandparents who love them deeply, but it's not always easy. Living together also means giving up some independence. Before making important decisions, I usually talk to my parents first. Sometimes I wish I had more freedom to make every decision on my own, but after everything I've been through, I've come to understand something. Having my parents beside me is one of the greatest gifts life has given me. When I was lying in the hospital after my accident, they were there. When I lost my ability to work the way I once did, they encouraged me. When my marriage came to an end, they opened their home and welcomed me and my children with open arms. And when I left for Hanoi to search for work, they became the ones who cared for my son and daughter every single day. Without them, I honestly don't know how I would have survived the hardest chapter of my life. Now, whenever I watch my parents laughing and playing with their grandchildren, my heart is filled with gratitude. I also feel a little guilty. At an age when they should be resting and enjoying life, they're still helping me carry responsibilities that should be mine. That thought pushes me to keep moving forward, not only for my children, but for my parents too. I hope that one day I'll become strong enough, stable enough, and successful enough to give them the peaceful life they truly deserve, just as they've spent nearly 30 years giving everything they could to me. After dinner, everything in our home returned to its familiar routine. While I was away, my mother became the one who took care of my two children every evening. She bathed them, helped them brush their teeth, changed them into their pajamas, prepared their milk, and gently stayed beside them until they fell asleep. I quietly watched everything. The things I once thought were ordinary suddenly felt incredibly meaningful. Being away for just a few days made me realize how much my parents had been carrying for me. During the day, they still had all of their usual responsibilities around the house: cooking, cleaning, working, and at the same time, chasing after two energetic little children. Sometimes they had to cook while holding one child in their arms. Sometimes they barely had time to finish a meal before one of the kids needed them again. From morning until night, there was hardly a moment for them to truly rest. As I looked at the gray hair on my parents' heads, and the wrinkles on their hands. My heart became heavy. At their age, they should be enjoying a peaceful life. They should finally be resting after spending so many years raising their children. Instead, they're still helping take care of me, and now my two children as well. I often tell them, I'm sorry, I should be the one taking care of you now. Instead, you've had to work even harder because of me. Every time I say those words, my mother simply smiles. Then she gently says, don't worry about us. As long as we're still healthy, we're happy that we can help you and the children. One day we'll grow old and won't have the strength anymore. So don't carry this burden in your heart. Just keep moving forward. You'll get through this difficult time. Whenever I hear those words, I don't know what to say. My eyes just fill with tears. I truly believe there is no love in this world quite like a parent's love. It doesn't matter whether you're 5 years old, 30 years old, or even 50. To your parents, you'll always be their child. When I was little, they held my hands and taught me how to walk. Now, after life knocked me down, they're quietly helping me stand up again. Parents rarely talk about their sacrifices. They simply show their love through their actions. Through every warm meal, every sleepless night spent caring for their grandchildren, every gentle word of encouragement, those quiet acts of love have given me the strength to keep going. I don't know what the future holds, but I've made a promise to myself. One day, I want my parents to stop worrying about me. I want to become strong enough to support them, just as they've supported me for my entire life. After the children fell asleep, I quietly returned to the kitchen to clean up. The sound of running water and the gentle clinking of dishes were the only sounds left in the house. As I washed the dishes, my mind wandered. This was the same kitchen I had known for years. The same table, the same stove, the same bowls and plates. Nothing had really changed, yet somehow it felt like a completely different place. Maybe it wasn't the kitchen that had changed. Maybe it was the people who once stood inside it for 6 years. After almost every meal, my wife and I cleaned up together. I'd wash the dishes, she would wipe the table. Sometimes we'd talk about work, sometimes about the children, sometimes we'd laugh over something that had happened during the day. At the time, those moments felt so ordinary. I never imagined that one day I'd miss those ordinary moments more than anything. Now, I'm standing here alone. No conversations, no laughter, just the sound of water and silence. I looked down at my hand, the hand that will never be the same again. Something as simple as holding a bowl without dropping it has become a challenge. Some dishes take both hands to steady. Some tasks that once took only a few minutes now take twice as long, sometimes even longer. It's not because my hand still hurts, it's because I'm still learning to live with what I've lost. There are moments when I catch myself wondering, if the accident had never happened, would my life have turned out differently? But I've learned there's no answer to that question. No matter how many times I ask it, the past will never change. The only thing I can change is how I choose to live from this moment forward. Life has taken many things away from me, but it has also left me with things that matter even more. My two children are sleeping peacefully in the next room. My parents are still here beside me, and I still have another chance to rebuild my life. I know there will be difficult days ahead, but as long as I can come home each evening, as long as I can hear my children call me Dad, I'll always have a reason to keep going. This wall is where our wedding photos and family pictures used to hang. Every time I walked into this room, the first thing I saw was our smiles frozen in those photographs. They reminded me of a time when I truly believed our family would stay together forever. After she left, I quietly took them down. I couldn't throw them away. Instead, I carefully packed them into a box and placed them in a corner of the house. Not because I wanted to erase those memories, and not because I hated looking at them. The real reason was much simpler. I didn't want my children to see those photos every day and ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. Dad, where's mom? When is she coming home? Why doesn't she live with us anymore? To them, they're simple questions, but to me, they're the hardest ones I've ever faced. I don't know how to explain the pain of adults to two little children, and I don't want their childhood to be filled with sadness that doesn't belong to them. I want them to grow up surrounded by love, not by the silence left behind. This room was once the heart of our little family. The two beds are still here. Almost everything looks exactly the same, but somehow, everything feels different. This room used to be full of laughter. We shared meals here. We talked about our days. The children played until they fell asleep in our arms. There were nights when we stayed awake together because one of the kids was sick. We celebrated birthdays here. We comforted each other through difficult times. So many memories were made inside these walls. So many challenges we thought we'd face together. Now, it's just the three of us. Sometimes, after the children have fallen asleep, I sit here alone in silence, not because I'm holding on to the past, but because life changed so quickly that part of me is still trying to catch up. There are days when I feel incredibly tired, days when sadness quietly fills the room. It feels as if life has taken away one important thing after another. But then I look at my children sleeping peacefully and I remind myself, I don't have the luxury of giving up because my life is no longer just about me. It's about the two little people who call me dad. They don't need a perfect father. They don't need a wealthy father. They simply need a father who stays, a father who loves them, a father who keeps trying no matter how hard life becomes. I may not have a stable job today. I may not know what tomorrow will bring, but I still have time. I still have the strength to keep moving forward. I still have my parents beside me. And most importantly, I still have my two children. They're the reason I wake up every morning. Life ahead will not be easy. I'm sure there will be many more challenges waiting for us, but I believe that as long as the three of us stay together, one day these difficult times will become nothing more than a chapter in our story, a chapter we survived together,